Hi everybody, it's Oksana. Today I'm going to be showing you how to make this wire-wrapped pendant, and it uses a cabochon, which cabochons tend to be kind of rounded at the top and flat on the back, and that's what really works best in this sort of design. It doesn't have to be an oval, but perhaps not the best design for stones that are, just like rough stones that are not cabochons, that are not smooth like this, because it may not stay in as well. But you never know, you can try it with all different stones and perhaps it'll work. So this is a design, it uses oxidized copper wire. So you're going to see me using the bare copper wire in the video, but this right here is what the pendant looks like after it's been oxidized with liver of sulfur. It gets a dark color, and I'm not going to be showing that in the video, how to do that, but it's really easy to do. I'm sure there's like a ton of information if you just Google it, and I got my liver of sulfur on Amazon for under $10, so really easy to do. And so this method secures the stone on the back using these base wires, and as you can see, it is secured and it is not going anywhere. And here's another pendant that is somewhat similar. This one is a triangle, so it's a little harder to do. I would recommend starting with a teardrop or an oval shape, especially if you're doing it for the very first time. The sharp angles can be a little tricky, so this one I actually secure on the back by using a skinny weaving wire and just weaving it all around, putting it through these little gaps here that are left, in between my weave. And this actually uses 4 base wires, but today I'm going to show you the stones, a little thicker. I'm going to show you with 5 base wires, and I'm going to show you how to secure it on the back using the base wires as well. But you can do it, in this manner if you prefer that with the weaving wires. So there's so many different directions that this could take you. But if you want to see how I made this pendant, then just keep watching. So here I have 5 base wires, and these are 20 gauge. And probably like 11 inches. This is my stone. It is quite small. It's less than an inch, so I just like to give myself extra room to work with. Basically, you just need these wires to be able to go around the stone and then have some extra wires for the bail. So just make them, kind of longer and give yourself some room. But this is what I'm working with. I'm going to put a spring clamp on these to hold them in place. So I'm guessing my stone would be like roughly right here. So that's why I'm going to clamp them here. And the amount of wires you need to use depends on the thickness of your stone. This is a lot of wires to weave on, 5 wires. Using 4 generally works. My stone is not too thick, but it's also not super thin. So I think that this will be a nice width. You basically don't want your wires to end up being skinnier than the side of your stone. You want it to be the same as the side of your stone, or slightly bigger, but not too much smaller, because then it'll be hard to make it stay in there. So at first, I'm going to start out using my 26 gauge wire. And I'm just using bare copper. You can use, enameled copper or, colored wires, whatever you want. But I'm going to be putting this right above the 2 wires here, and I'm going to be wrapping twice around the bottom too. And this can vary. I mean, if you have a favorite weaving pattern that you like to do, you can probably do that instead. The reason that I'm doing this pattern here is because it leaves, I don't know, it might be hard to see, but it leaves little gaps. Like, it's not one that's super tight together. And so I'm going to use those gaps later that are going to be kind of here on the bottom. So if you do choose a different wrap to do, just make sure that there will be some spaces in between that you can later stick a wire through, just a thin 28 gauge wire through, because I'm going to do that to secure the stone. So that is all I'm doing, is just 2 wraps around 2 wires. This is a very common weaving pattern. I think I have a tutorial on this weaving pattern now that it's being held together. I don't need my clamp anymore, but this is just a basic one now. I'm going to go down, so I'm just going to go for as long as I need to go for this weave to be able to fit around the stone. You don't want it to fit all the way around and then to the very, very top, because you don't want the stone to fall out. I'll show you what it looks like once I get to the right length, but basically we're going to form a window that it needs to be slightly smaller than the front of the stone so it doesn't pop out through the window forward. Alright, so here's my weave, and I've taken it. This is actually the underside. So this is what the weave looks like, and I kind of like the way the underside looks. It's just slightly different. So now it's long enough for my stone. If I close this up like this, and you can see my stone doesn't quite fit through, but I have to make sure I don't leave a big gap up here like when I'm closing this up, because if this ends up being wide, it is going to be able to pop through the top. So this really kind of needs to touch like this. So mine's kind of making a teardrop shape. If you want it to look more like a true oval, you can kind of bend up here. And I also just want to show you, so you can see there's gaps here, some pretty big gaps. If you are using 4 wires, there might be, slightly shorter gaps, but they'll still be nice gaps, which we will use to secure the stone on the back. If you're using 28 gauge wire instead of 26 like I used, the gaps will be smaller, skinnier, and that might be okay, but you might have trouble sticking a wire through them. And if you do, then just use 26 gauge next time. But it can be done. I've definitely done it with 28 gauge as well. I just thought this was easier, and I want to make this tutorial easy for everybody. So you can hold the stone kind of in place so you can see that it's fitting nicely. And then we are going to, let's see here, there's like a million ways that you can, close up this top. So what I'm going to do, let me just bend these wires up. First, what I am going to do is, I'm not going to make anything too fancy. So I'm just going to take the very inner wire here, and then the very inner wire here. Let's see if I can reach that. There it is. And I am bringing this together, making sure that, okay, my stone definitely will not pop out if it is this shape and size. And I'm taking these wires and crossing them over the front. You can weave around them first and make them all nice and pretty, but for the purposes of relatively quick tutorial, and just cross them over the front like that, and it's going to hold your shape. And then you can use these same wires. I'm just going to use these same wires, but say you made all kinds of pretty decorative swirls and stuff with these wires and you no longer have them available, just pick another wire and bring it to the back, because you're going to need some wires on the back. Well, there's actually 2 options. One option is to use these thicker wires on the back to secure the stone, and the other option is to use thinner wires. So in the case of this pendant here, here's the pendant. I want you to see the back. I used thin wires and I put them through the little gaps, and I just secured the stone that way. It depends on your stone, if your wire feels like it's going to be too flimsy to hold the stone. But this was a pretty deep, pretty thick weave. My stone was not really close to coming out. It's also being held a little bit up here. So you can use the thinner wires, or I'm going to show you in this tutorial how to use these thicker wires. Alright, so I have my stone in here. Notice that my weave isn't super flat. It's kind of bent inwards. You can just take your fingers and bend it inwards so it makes a little cup or a little basket for your stone. All right, so with these thicker wires, what I'm going to do is bend them so that they are right near the edge on each side. Then I'm going to take a piece, a relatively long piece, of 28 gauge wire, and you could keep going with the 26 gauge wire, but this just is a little easier. So I'm taking that, let me take my stone down for a second here, and I am just wrapping it around this thicker wire a few times to secure it. Alright, so now I'm going to push that little weave up, and I am going to use this wire, mine's probably a little too long, and I'm going to push it through. So I'm going, so here's this wire, I'm going kind of, you know, under it, or in this case above it, and then right through this little hole. Can you see that? So that I am attaching my wire to the rest of my weave is what I'm doing here basically. And you can do this a few times so that it's really attached. Maybe like 3 times I'm going to do it, 3 or 4 times. Okay, so we'll do one more time. And this is actually almost invisible from the front because we're using pretty thin wires here. They're thinner than the other ones that we used. So I'll show you in 1 second, but if you're worried about this showing from the front, you really can't see it here. Alright, so that's attached. Now I'm going to do just a few single loops just so my wire doesn't move around too much around this wire here. Just a few times. There we go. Okay, so that's secure. Now you can either just kind of like wrap this loosely. If you don't want to cut your wire, you can keep going with it. You can have it, you know, just cross over. That's totally fine. Or if you want to cut it off and then just start a whole new weave, you can definitely do that too. So if you're feeling lazy and you don't want to cut it, you can just make very loose wraps like this. You see that? That's what I do sometimes if I don't want to cut my wire and then start over. And so I am bringing this right here, and my wire is, you know, relatively short. I don't think I need to cut this. You could definitely cut the end of it. Like this one seems like it might be slightly longer. But I'm going to take the end. This is really up to you. I mean, this decorative part on the back is really just whatever you like and think looks good. But this is going to get attached to wherever it will reach, which is going to be like right here. I think it'll reach right there. So I'm going to take my stone. I'm going to put it in. At this point, you do want to have your stone in there just because it's going to start getting secured and you don't want to have to, you know, try and squeeze it in there later. It might get difficult. So this is where it gets tricky because you're trying to hold the stone in place. You're trying to weave. So I'm just going to push it down with my thumb. The rest of it is like here with my finger. It's staying pretty, you know, steady. I'm taking my skinny weaving wire and I'm putting it through just the closest little gap, which is right here, so that I can start securing this. Okay, so just like that. And then let me open up that loop just a tiny bit. I'll close it back up later. Just going to be easier for me to get in there. if the loop is a little more open. All right, so whatever decorative loops that you do here on the back to secure your stone, make sure that they're not just on the top, but they're on the bottom too. And then here, the side here, we can bend this a little bit so it's more on the actual stone like this, because you want the stone to just kind of be secure from all angles. And we can take this as well with pliers, just kind of push that on so it's on our stone. See that? Now the stone actually isn't wobbly anymore. So I'm just going to weave here a little more to secure this little curly end of my wire. And then I will be done with that, and we can start with the other wire. So let me do it maybe like 2 or 3 times so it's really being held on there nicely. Sorry, my camera keeps going out of focus. So 2 times I think should be fine. So now let me pick up this little curl just so I can use my weaving wire, go around a few times before I cut it off. Okay, so I'm going to cut this off and pinch it down. I'm going to push this curl back down. I'm going to push it this way so it doesn't stick out, you know, in the bottom here. And I'm going to take my round nose pliers and I'm just going to close it back up. I opened it to make it a little easier for myself to get in there with my weaving wire. So there we have it. Here's what it's looking like so far. So I'm going to trim off this wire, trim off this end, and then I'm going to do something similar here on this side. Alright, so on this side, same thing. Just want to secure it somehow. I'm going to start by wrapping my weaving wire just a few times around this base wire to get it nice and secured. And then once you have that, there we go. So I'm gonna have this going this way, and then I'll secure it like right there. So I'm gonna take my weaving wire, I'm gonna push it through. Actually, it should be going in this direction. Sorry. Push it through. I'm gonna put it through here this time. Alright. A few more times. Okay, that should be good. So now I'm going to wrap it, do some single wraps, and I'm going to take my pliers, I'm going to kind of bend this wire in this direction, and then for this end here, I'm going to do some loose little weaves just to get my wire down here. And I'm going to secure it to right here, right next to this other little curl. I'm going to secure it just right there. Seems like a good spot. Careful because it tends to get all twisted up. Alright. A few more times. I'm going to do that a few more times just so that it feels nice and secure. There we go. And that should be good. Now I'm going to weave a little bit around this wire. Alright, so I cut my weaving wire, and now I'm just going to take this, make a little decorative loop. I'm going to put that, oh, I can't grab it. I put it right next to this other loop, like so. Oh, hopefully you saw that. So here's what the back looks like. And my stone is pretty secure in there. It is not wobbling or moving in any way. From the front, if you're looking at the very side, you can see this. You can kind of try to push it actually with your fingers if you want. But right from the front, you really can't. And now what is left to do is our bail. So we have lots of wires going on here. I'm going to try and separate them a little bit, keep them in order, you know, from like doing this one first, then the next one, so they don't get all crossed over and messy looking. There we go. So I think that's the order of the wires. So all that's left to do is some sort of bail and some sort of decoration. So what I'm going to do is use these inner 4 wires for my bail. And I'm going to use 28 gauge wire this time. And I'm doing the same pattern as I did right here, except now it's 4 wires instead of 5. So just around 2 wires. Then around, oops, sorry, hopefully you saw that. Then around the next 2 wires. It's the same exact weaving pattern. You can do whatever one you want if you have a favorite one that you like. This one's just kind of quick and easy for the purposes of having a tutorial that's not too long for you to watch. So I am just going to go for a while until I feel like it's a good height for my bail. Alright, so I think this will be a good height for my bail, and then I went ahead and coiled my weaving wire around just one of these wires on the side here, the very side one. You don't have to do that. I think I'm just going to kind of wrap that around though, so I wanted it to look pretty. So I'm forming my bail. And let's see here, let me pinch that down. So now I'm going to take that wire that I weaved around, and let's see here. I'm going to put it, oh, sorry. I'm going to put it right in between those 2 other wires. You know, the ones that were bare, like that. And then I'm going to put it, so here it is coming back around. It just goes all the way around. And then I'm going to put it under these wires here. I'm just trying to secure it somewhere. Alright, so then here it is here. I'm just going to trim off that little end and then just, you know, curl that. Try and get that tucked so you can't feel that little end. There we go. Alright, so that's secure. These 3, I'm going to cut them and just make little loops for decoration with them. Alright, so that's the back, and now we have these sticking out the sides. So you can do whatever you want with them that you think will look pretty. I think I'm going to trim them and make like little decorative curls. I'm going to take these actually and I'm going to try and get them over through the bail onto my other side here. There we go. And I'm gonna have some curls, I think. I'm gonna trim them. I'm gonna do this one a little shorter, this one a little longer, and then up here I'm gonna do this one a little shorter, and then the one under it a little longer, like that. And I'm just gonna make a little loop, and then another one right next to it. And then same thing on the top here. And I am rushing here, so probably could do a better job with these little loops. All right. Here we go. All right, so just something to that effect to get them out of the way. I'm going to play around a little bit. This one needs to be fixed. But just to get them out of the way. So now we got a bail. We tucked away all our wires, and we're done. And the stone is nice and secure in here. And one quick thing I almost forgot about. There's a little bit of wire here that you can grab. And you don't have to do this. Like, it's really secure anyways, but since I'm doing it, I figured I would show you. There we go. Just gonna bend that a little bit. Now it's super duper secure in there. So that is it. I fixed my little curls so they're prettier looking, but that is my wire wrapped cabochon. So thank you so much for watching. If you want to check out my Facebook page, it's www.facebook.com/OxanaCrafts, exactly like the name of this channel. So I'll see you next time. Thanks.